When dividing with decimals, you are going to use long division just like normal. However, you are never allowed to have a decimal in the divisor. So if you end up with a decimal in your divisor, you are going to have to move that decimal in both the divisor and the dividend, the same number of spaces, until you make your divisor a whole number. So in the problem 32.4 divided by 4, 32.4 is my dividend, so I'm going to write it inside of my long division symbol. It is divided by the divisor of 4. Because 4 is not a decimal, it's a whole number, I can just start dividing like normal. The one thing that I need to make sure that I do is bring my decimal up. Now I'm going to divide. I know that I can't divide 3 by 4, so I'm going to move to 2, and I'm going to divide 32 by 4. If I divide 32 by 4, I get 8, so I'm going to write my 8 above my 2. 8 times 4 gives me 32, and when I subtract, I'm left with 0. Now I have a 4 in my dividend that I need to bring down. And now I'm going to do 4 divided by 4, which gives me 1. So I'm going to place that above this 4, and I'm going to multiply. 1 times 4 gives me 4, and when I subtract, I'm left with a remainder of 0. And I have nothing left in my dividend to bring down, so my quotient is 8.1, or 8 1/10. For 8.96 divided by 1.6, I'm going to write my dividend of 8.96 inside my long division symbol, and then 1.6 is my divisor, which I'll put on the outside. Before I start dividing, I know that my divisor is a decimal, so I need to make it a whole number. To make it a whole number, I'm technically needing to move my decimal one place to the right, which is the same as multiplying by 10. If I move my decimal in my divisor, I must also move the decimal in the dividend. So I'm going to move this decimal one place to the right as well. Now my divisor is a whole number, it's a 16, and my dividend is actually 89.6. I'm going to bring up the decimal, and now I can start dividing. So when I do 8 divided by 16, I know that 8 cannot be divided by 16. So I'm going to move and do 89 divided by 16. When I do 89 divided by 16, I get 5. So I'm placing the 5 above the 9. And when I do 5 times 16, I get 80. Now I subtract 89 minus 80, which leaves me with 9. I still have a 6 in my dividend, so I'm going to bring that down and get a 96. Now I'll do 96 divided by 16, which gives me 6. And when I do 6 times 16, I'm left with 96. And when I subtract, I have a remainder of 0. That means that the quotient of 8.96 and 1.6 is 5.6, or 5 6/10. Now I'm going to do 374 divided by 0.2. 374 is my dividend, and I'm going to divide it by my divisor of 0.2. I know that I can't have a decimal in my divisor, so I need to move this. In order to make this a whole number, I will need to move it one place. If I move the decimal in my divisor, I also must move the decimal in my dividend. When I look at this dividend, it looks as if there is no decimal, but I always know that every whole number has a decimal at the end. So there is a decimal here that I'm going to take and move one place to the right. When I move to one place to the right, I'm left with an empty space, and I need to fill it with a placeholder of 0. Now I can start dividing. So I'm going to start with 3 and divide 3 by 2, which gives me 1. 1 times 2 is 2, so I'll subtract 3 minus 2, which leaves me with 1. Now I'm going to bring down my 7. 17 divided by 2 is 8, so I'm going to write 8, and then multiply 8 times 2, which is 16. I'm going to subtract 17 minus 16, which gives me 1. Now I have a 4 that I need to bring down, and now I'm going to do 14 divided by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and then I'm going to multiply 7 times 2, which gives me 14. Now I'm left with 0. I have to be careful here because it looks as if I have nothing left, but I actually have this 0 in my dividend. And before I can finish, I have to bring this 0 down and I have to divide by 2. So when I do 0 divided by 2, I actually have 0, and that 0 needs to be written. 0 times 2 is 0, and when I subtract, I'm left with 0. Now there's nothing left for me to bring down, so now I'm finished. That means that my quotient is 1,870. Last week, Tyson earned $210 at his after-school job. If he earned $7.50 per hour, how many hours did he work? Well, if I know that Tyson earns $210 and he gets $7.50 for each hour that he works, to figure out how many hours he worked, I'm going to divide the total he earned, which is $210, by the amount he earned each hour, which is $7.50. Now I'm going to rewrite this as a long division problem. So my divisor will be 210 and my dividend will be $7.50. But when I write this, I'm actually going to leave out this last 0 because that 0 doesn't actually need to be there. So I'm going to say 210 divided by 7.5. Now I need to solve. So before I can get started, I need to move the decimal in my divisor. In this case, I'm moving it one place to the right. So I need to move the decimal in my dividend one place to the right. Even though I don't see it, I know it's at the end of 210. So I'm going to move it one place to the right, and I'm going to put a 0 in its place. Now I'll divide like normal. I cannot divide 2 by 75, and I also cannot divide 21 by 75. So I'm going to move all the way to the 0, and I'm going to do 210 divided by 75. I know that if I divide 210 by 75, I get 2, and I'm going to place that above this 0. 2 times 75 is 150. Now I'm going to subtract 210 minus 150, which gives me 60. I have a 0 from my dividend that needs to be brought down, and now I'm going to do 600 divided by 75. When I do 600 divided by 75, I get 8. And when I do 8 times 75, I get 600. So when I subtract, I'm left with a remainder of 0, and there's nothing left to bring down. This means that Tyson worked 28 hours last week. Finally, Savannah paid a total of $84.81 for 3 pairs of pants. If each pair of pants costs the same amount of money, how much does one pair of pants cost? If Savannah paid $84.81 for 3 pairs, and I want to know what does one pair cost, I'm going to take the total she paid and divide by the number of pairs of pants that she has. So in this case, $84.81 divided by 3. Now I'm going to rewrite it as a long division problem, and I'm going to divide like normal. My divisor is already a whole number, so I don't have to worry about moving my decimal. All I'm going to do is bring the decimal in my dividend up. I'm going to start with 8 and divide 8 by 3. I know that if I divide 8 by 3, I get 2. 2 times 3 gives me 6, so I write my 6 and then I subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2, and now I bring down my 4. Now I'm going to do 24 divided by 3, which gives me 8. 8 times 3 is 24, and when I subtract, I'm left with 0. Now I'm not finished because I still have numbers in my dividend. So now I need to bring down this 8. Now I have 8 divided by 3, which is again 2. 2 times 3 gives me 6, and when I subtract, I'm left with 2. Now I have a 1 from my dividend that needs to be brought down. 21 divided by 3 is 7, and when I do 7 times 3, I'm left with 21, and when I subtract, I get 0. That means that one pair of pants cost $28.27.